the fastest way to farm levels in the game, and this accessory makes your grinding life 10 times easier. This is how you get to level 2450 in 1 week. Okay, so starting off, this is the #1 mistake that you do not want to make in Blox Fruits, and it's one that I personally made myself. Not knowing the difference between fruits that are meant for PvP and meant for grinding. And obviously, since this is a video to get to level 2450, you're gonna want to use some grinding fruits, not PvP ones. Let's compare two different types of fruits. The magma fruit, which is a grinding fruit, and the dove fruit, which is a PvP fruit. The magma fruit costs a total of 850,000 belly, and it's a rare fruit. It's also an elemental fruit, which means enemies need hockey to hit you. The magma fruit also does have an awakening, which costs a total of 14,500 fragments, and most of its abilities have an area of damage, which means they can do damage to multiple targets at the same time. And once the magma fruit is awakened, it's the second best fruit in the game for grinding. So on the other hand, we have a dove, which is a fruit which is more targeted to PvP. It's a mythical fruit, making it a lot harder to get. It costs a total of 2,800,000 belly, and it also does have an awakening, which costs a total of 18,500 fragments. But overall, most of the abilities of this fruit are actually suited towards PvP, which means for grinding, it's not as good as the magma fruit, even though this fruit is overall a much better fruit in my opinion. But if you want to purely focus on your levels and grinding up to a higher one, then you definitely want to get your hands on the magma fruit. Okay, so on that note, let's talk about some grinding fruits that are really good for beginner players to get. And these three fruits are the magma fruit, the ice fruit, and the light fruit. The magma fruit is really good for grinding, the literal second best, like I mentioned before. But the reason the ice fruit and the light fruit are really good for grinding is a bit of a different reason to the magma. The light and ice fruit both get passive abilities. For the ice fruit, you get an ice trident, and for the light fruit, you get a light sword. And the cool thing about these passive abilities is that you can actually use them without any cooldown, which means unlike an ability or a skill, you don't need to wait for a reload time. You can just kind of spam it. And it's not only their passive ability that makes them good for grinding, it's the fact that they're both elemental fruits. For the ice fruit, it costs a total of 350,000 belly, or 750 Robux from the Blox Fruit dealer. And this one does have an awakening, but you won't be able to awaken it in the first seed. But the normal version is still really good for grinding. And next, moving on to the light fruit, this one costs a total of 650,000 belly. And the light fruit also does have an awakening, but like I said with the ice, you won't actually need this for the first seed. And overall, these three fruits, the magma, ice, and light, are just really good for grinding in the first seed. So if you get your hands on them early, make sure you do not switch to a different fruit. Okay, so next up, I'm going to be telling you a little trick that's going to make your leveling life a little bit easier. So everybody knows the last quest of the first sea, and this is the Fountain City quest. After you're done killing the NPC, 99% of players will finish the quest and actually head to the second sea, and immediately start doing the first quest there. But did you know the first quest of the second sea is actually a pretty bad quest because the enemies are spaced really far apart from each other? So what you actually want to do is, instead of heading into the second sea after you unlock it, you actually want to go back and keep doing the final quest that you have there. I mean, not the boss quest, but the one with the group NPCs. And the reason that this quest is actually better than the other ones is because the enemies are way closer together, which means they're way easier to group up and fight, unlike the other one. In the long run, it's definitely worth to grind the ones in Fountain City. And once you get all the XP for the second sea quest from the first sea, then you can head over to the second sea. And then you can move on to the next quest, which is in the second area of the first island. Okay, so next up, I'm going to be telling you about a really crucial ability that I recommend everybody watching to buy, but most of you should already have this. And I'm talking about Hockey. Hockey is an ability that can be purchased from the ability teacher for a total of 25,000 belly. And I recommend everybody, as soon as you get 25,000 belly, immediately head to the snow island and into the cave and buy it from the ability teacher. Hockey is a really cheap, easily obtainable, and useful, so I recommend you to definitely get this. To activate and deactivate your Hockey, press J, but I think you should keep it on the whole time because there are no energy drawbacks, so it's really overpowered. The Hockey leveling system has a total of 6 stages. First up, we got stage 0, and this one covers the half of your arms, and this increases your non-fruit attacks by 1.1, which isn't really that much. And then moving on to stage 1, this is where it covers your full arm, and this multiplies your non-fruit attacks and your fruit attacks by 1.1, and you need a total of 4,000 XP for this. Moving on to stage 2, what this does is it covers your full torso along with your arms, and this ability makes you take 9% less damage from any attack that lands on you. So basically, it acts as an extra defense. Moving on to stage 3, this is where it covers your full arms, torso, and head. It negates all damage taken by 17%, which is a huge step up from the other one. And then moving on to stage 4, this is where it covers your full arms, torso, head, and half of your legs. And this stage reduces all the damage you take by 24%. This is a huge amount of damage reduction. And then we got stage 5, which is the final stage, and this one reduces all damage taken by 30%. And obviously, once you fully max out your Hockey, you will keep all the buffs from each stage. There's also some cool colors you can buy for it, so you should definitely get a hold of this ability. So moving on, I got another trick for people that are in the second sea. And I'm talking about the Swan Pirates. And you might be wondering why the Swan Pirates are such a good trick. It's about the area they're located and how close to each other they spawn. It's next to this bridge over here in the Kingdom of Rose area 2. And the reason these guys are so good to grind is because they're located so close to each other, making it extremely easy to group up. And you never have to wait for them to respawn. And this location in the second sea is literally every player's best friend. And it's literally a level farm if you know what you're doing. Moving on, I'm going to be telling you about the most overpowered grinding fruit in the whole of Blox fruits, and I'm obviously talking about the Buddha fruit. It is what it is. It is what it is. And the reason the Buddha fruit is extremely overpowered when it comes to grinding is because of its long range when you use its first transform ability. Enemies you're fighting literally cannot hit you back, which means you're just doing damage to them and they can't do anything to you. The Buddha fruit costs a total of 1,200,000 belly, or 1,650 Robux. It's a legendary fruit and obviously it's a beast type fruit. The whole awakening costs a total of 14,500 fragments. But the first ability only costs 500 fragments to awaken, so I recommend everybody to do that. The fruit that's second to this is the magma. And that's also a really decent fruit, but this fruit is literally the best. Next up, I'm going to be telling you about something that's really underrated when it comes to grinding, and I'm talking about accessories. Accessories are a really subtle way to improve your grinding. I mean, they give pretty minor buffs, but over time, those buffs could be really overpowered. And the accessory I'm going to be telling you guys about is the Ghoul Mask, and this accessory is something that you should use if you have the Buddha fruit and if you're grinding with it. And it can be bought from El Perro, who's located on the cursed ship in the second sea. It only costs 50 ectoplasm, so by the time you're done with your quest there, you should be able to buy it. Gives you plus 500 energy, 10% life leech on melee attacks against players. It gives you a 2.5 life leech on melee attacks against NPCs. And that's not all, it also increases your movement speed by a total of 35%, making you a really hard target to hit when you're running around. Overall, a really decent accessory, and I 100% recommend this to people with the Buddha fruit, and just people that are grinding in general. Next up is something that's really easy to do, and there's literally no reason to not do it, and I'm talking about codes. Codes are a really easy way to increasing the speed at which you grind, and the reason for that is a lot of the codes in the game are actually double XP codes. All you have to do to find these codes is just go into Google or YouTube and just search up Roblox Blox fruits codes, and it should show you every active code in the game. And after that, all you gotta do is simply enter in every single code. But I will tell you guys that you should probably enter the code in one at a time, because you're literally not going to be grinding every second of Blox fruit. Sometimes you're walking around just to buy guns and do other stuff. Okay, so now this is something that's really crucial to leveling up, and I'm talking about your grinding styles. There's a lot of different ways to grind in the game. Although grinding with Buddha is the best one, not all people can get the Buddha fruit right off the bat. So some people might be grinding with swords or even fighting styles. But whatever style you choose, I recommend you stick to it and you do not change your fighting style. And the reason for that is it's way better to have your stats all on 3 different categories. So for example, you have a total of 99 stat points and you're a sword grinder, then you should put 33 on sword, 33 on defense, and 33 on melee. And there's also some people out there that grind with guns, but I wouldn't really recommend that to a lot of you guys. But either way, if you are a gun main, then stick to being a gun main until you can reset your stats. Another thing that's pretty good to do is to server hop bosses, and the reason you want to do this is because the boss quest gives you way more XP than the regular quest from the quest giver, and they usually take lesser time to do as well. And the way you server hop them is to click the servers button on the top left and simply just join a new server after you're done killing the boss. And then you just want to repeat this step a bunch of times until you're done with the boss quest fully. And you can also use it to just grind drops from bosses if you're looking for a specific drop.
No.